The MIT Singapore collaboration has been going for a really long time. I don't remember quite how long. Maybe I know my involvement has been almost 15 years now. So that's a very long time. The MIT Singapore collaboration has taken many forms. There was an educational part where they were actually doing joint classes remotely and things like that. That was a long time ago. Then there was a university that started in Singapore, the Singapore University of Technology and Design, that started in collaboration with MIT, and now it is sort of successful and going on its own. So I was not involved in those two, but I've been involved in a program called SMART, which is a very smart acronym. It means Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology. SMART operates, I like it because it is very collaborative. It operates with groups of professors that typically come from many departments. We get together, we identify a very important societal application, and then we apply for funding. It goes through various stages at MIT and in Singapore. And then we sort of do the research in both places, both at Singapore and at MIT. Now you might ask, why do we need to go all the way to Singapore to do all this? Well, there's some particular situations where Singapore is actually more receptive to certain topics. An example of that, I'll give you a project that I was not involved in, autonomous driving. Because Singapore is a very small place, it is a very small country, it is 25 by 15 miles perhaps in size, it's a small island. So it is very easy to do things that cannot be done at large scale. For example, to automate the highways or to launch autonomous buses. They're doing it already. Some lines in Singapore, the buses are automated, I was told. So that makes it a little bit easier and more receptive. So once again, it has to do with application, right? You know, we get the opportunity to do that. Precision agriculture is a somewhat similar story. Singapore is very small. There's no room for, and very densely populated. There's no room for farms. In fact, most of their produce is imported. So they would really like to have the option of urban farming. Imagine in the, you know, almost everything in Singapore is high-rises. So they would like to have kind of vertical farms hanging, if you can imagine, hanging onto high-rise walls or balconies. And that, of course, presents its own challenges, right? It is not the traditional way people do farming. So it creates some interesting problems, some interesting fundamental problems and some interesting translation problems. How do you take the fundamental work and apply? Yeah, so this has driven a lot of my research over the years. A lot of topics, underwater imaging, that's how many of these ideas developed from underwater imaging project in Singapore and many others, yes. Yeah, it was also motivated by environmental concerns, for example, to look at pollutants underwater or inspect ships, that's another big application. We're also collaborating with acoustic imaging, people who look for coral reefs, right? They try to characterize the health using ultrasound or perhaps mixed techniques that include both ultrasound and optics. It's very challenging too, as you can imagine. Underwater, things are dark, muddy, a lot of particles moving around, not very easy to image. So that spawned a lot of the thinking that later became the more recent applications. Let me just say that I would like to encourage our friends in the industry to talk to us. It is very helpful for us to know all of the parameters of their problems and all of the context. And the second is to be a little bit more receptive to risk, because a lot of these, important problems, they really look very risky. You know, when you start addressing the problem, it sounds like we're doing things that should be impossible, and I think I described to you already a couple of things that indeed looked impossible until we actually came back and proved that it isn't. In many cases, it pays off for industry to take more risk. For the same very simple reason that if they do that, then they will be immediately ready to reap the reward. Whereas, you know, a government program can take a while, even if it succeeds, it can take a while before it actually finds its way to industry. Or it may even get lost or forgotten, right? Because people give up or money runs out or whatever. So in my experience, the companies that are willing to take a lot of risk and trust that at MIT sometimes we can even pull these little miracles, right? I think there's a lot of reward into that as well. So what I'm trying to say is that our friends in industry should be willing to tell us even about very, very difficult problems. Even if they think it's impossible and very risky, they should tell us, because at the very least, if we get started thinking about it, maybe we'll find a government program that can sort of temporarily fund some of the really risky research, and then we can go back to industry and apply. But we really need to know what are the impossible things that these folks want to accomplish. Well, maybe we cannot solve all of them, but maybe we can solve some, and that still would be good, right?